The big time stuff that I wish I had. The big time stuff that'll make you mad. The big time stuff. Big time stuff. I like the big time stuff. Big time stuff. I like the big time stuff that I never had.
Welcome to Market Meditations. Today we're bringing you a special guest named Andrew Klein. And I, Neal Mody, will be interviewing Andrew because he's helping lots of people at his accounting practice apply for the government loans that are available for COVID-19. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Neal. Thanks. Happy to be here.
So, and how I got to know Andrew is actually my accountant and my good buddy, and at one point, even my tennis partner. Andrew, do you mind beyond, sharing that? Do you mind sharing a little bit, a small amount about your entrepreneurial journey and a little bit about your accounting practice before we dive in deep to how you can help people today?
Sure. Yeah, I graduated from college and I pretty quickly joined a large CPA firm. It was probably top 14 in the country, but the largest here in Seattle. While I was,
you make it sound like you graduated last year or something.
Well, I mean, this is probably, 15, 20 years ago. So this is even before my MBA. But I graduated from Seattle U, a great little local school here, pretty connected to downtown. But I was just bored out of my mind working at a CPA firm this is back in the day when auditors had to do statistical analysis and pull, hundreds of transactions and go and talk to the clients. And did you really send this invoice? Did they really pay it? Et cetera, et cetera. And so I was just really bored and I was crushing through a lot of the work because I was really experienced in Excel and I was always looking for how do you be more efficient? How do you do stuff better? And so while I was at this large accounting firm, I actually started a business kind of in my spare time, like a nights and weekends type business, which I highly suggest for anyone working at a job that they've kind of got a good hold of. And I'd worked while I was in college at Taco Del Mar, which was about a 300-unit franchise restaurant chain. And so my business that I started while working at Moss Adams, they say you always should invest in something that you know well, right? Invest in what you know. And so I'd opened a chain of crepe restaurants, and then I was doing about $1 million a year over 3 locations.
Wait, at what age? Like really young, right?
Yeah, about like 22 years old. Like I barely started going to bars before I'd opened up a chain of restaurants, right? And really it was interesting because I understood by just paying attention at where I worked, I understood how you could get tenant improvement allowance from shopping malls and how you could use your lease to sort of fund your business, and then how to juggle the financing for the equipment. So I pretty much started out with no money, made $1 million a year until the economy crashed back in 2008, and then ended the business pretty much how I started it, with a lot of experience. I call it my real life MBA. But I sort of started and ended with nothing, which is kind of ironic. From that point on, I'd worked in startups fulfilling the financial silo of the business. That guy at the company that sort of holds everything together, helps with HR, accounting, legal, and all that sort of back-end system. And I bounced from startup to startup until eventually I was running an angel investment group. And I realized, holy crap, it wasn't just the startups that I was in that needed help with accounting. Every startup needs help with accounting, and every investor needs to be able to have numbers they can depend on. And so that's really how the accounting started. Is I started providing.
You do stuff would just be on startups. I mean, like you've told me a very small amount about some of your clients, and they do not seem like startups at all.
Well, yeah, it's funny. It was originally a service that I thought I would help these angel investors make better investments, and I would help those companies perform better and get better results because they weren't going to be running out of money. They're hiring and being compliant, paying their taxes. And so my first business plan was really startup tech businesses based on the West Coast, Seattle, San Francisco, LA probably if I was starting it today. But what happens is as you're doing great work for these entrepreneurs, you find out there's many businesses that are facing the same challenge as these tech entrepreneurs, but they don't have angel investors. They're their own angel investors. And so, yeah, I've got a couple clients, probably more than a couple now, that are these service businesses. So these marketing firms that are doing 10, 20, $30 million a year in marketing service businesses. I've got a painter. I was actually just talking to the Department of Revenue here in Washington about a painting business that we represent. So now I think today we've got businesses across the board. We've got an awesome little cannoli shop actually that's a customer just up in the north end of Lake Washington. So
in Seattle,
right in Seattle, yeah. And so we've got customers across the whole board, and so I think that does a great job of bringing us back to this sort of economic crash due to COVID. And I'm really, really chill at this economic crash right now. In 2008, I had 50 employees and $1 million in revenue. And our bank, our landlord for our highest grossing location, and pretty much everyone in the building got laid off. So the bank and the landlord went bankrupt, and then everyone in the building of our second location that we'd built got laid off because it was in the financial district of Seattle. And so I went from having 50 employees and $1 million in revenue and a very profitable crate business down to a couple $100,000 in revenue, and we burned through all the savings and reserves that we had within a couple months, just trying to give the employees a soft landing coming out of that economic crash. But, I learned a lot back then, and we had no program.
Would you do that again?
To prop up small businesses.
I would wonder, if you called me, I'd probably say, it's a nice thing to do, but don't.
I think that's the hard thing about restaurants is they say that the best way to make a small fortune in restaurants is to start out with a large fortune. But the problem is that business kind of bites you. And now I think I use more logic than I would have when I was 22. And so I think I could convince myself to not go back and do it. But there's incredible opportunities in the restaurant industry, and the restaurants that make it through this economic crash of being forced to shut down and not take customers, the ones that are able to embrace technology and build their business, or at least sustain their business to some extent, are going to be that much stronger and that much more profitable coming out of this. And so I think in every industry, there's always a disruptor or an entrepreneur who can make a success of something. And I'd like to argue that if I didn't have all the obligations of being a parent and of having hundreds of being the parent to hundreds of entrepreneurs, I guess, that depend on us for accounting, I think I'd consider it again. But it's a really tough business. So, tip your bartenders for sure, because it's hard work.
So take me through. The reason we had you on the podcast, the reason you and I were talking about it was you said, hey, look, I'm helping as many companies as I can. I just started offering free services to help people apply for these, I'll call them COVID-19 loans from the government. And you said you'd done a couple hundred in the last week or something like that. Take me through that. Is that an offer for anybody? Maybe you can explain the services.
Yeah, it's been about 3 weeks. But one of the loans is pretty easy to do if you have the information. So for our client base, I could knock through one of these applications in about 15 minutes. And then I've also made people on my team available to help cheerlead clients through this as well, and non-clients. But yeah, I just really thought back in 2008, when the economy crashed during the housing crisis, had we had programs like we have today, I don't think that as many businesses would have gone under. And my crate business didn't necessarily go under. It just never got to profitability again. It just sort of got to break even. So we could barely sort of survive and tread.
Just so you know, I think that means it went under.
Well, I don't know. It could sustain. I think it could still be around today, just barely paying its bills, like a lot of restaurants do. And as the economy came back over the last 5 years, it definitely would have been profitable. But I think that these programs where you can get payroll forgiveness by keeping your employees employed, and where you can get a long-term loan that helps support your working capital. I think that these programs are phenomenal for keeping businesses alive and keeping employees employed. And so I think about back in the time where I was young, so I was able to sort of get through it and survive, and I didn't have kids, and I didn't have, all those responsibilities that everybody, that a lot of people have that own businesses. And I was really devastated when the economy crashed last time. And I still struggle with, like I say, like the business was still alive. It just wasn't doing great. That F word, that failure word, I really struggle with even back from 2008. And so I thought, if there was a way that I could help entrepreneurs survive and help figure out these programs, one, my clients were asking me to do it. And, we try and be full service of anything accounting related. Opposed to just being a bookkeeper like the original business model, we're really that accounting department for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and startups, where they can have the same sort of service you'd have at accounting@microsoft.com. You have at accounting@yourowncompany.com, and then that service is fulfilled by our bookkeeping team and our tax team and all the people on our team. And so all those questions I knew were going to be coming in. And so I quickly figured out, where do you go to apply? Who are the best banks to apply with? Who's going to be up? If you don't have one of those banks, if you're using a credit union, where can you go? And so we quickly figured out what's the best path. And then as we were working through the first couple applications, actually working directly with the SBA, asking them questions, giving them responses, finding out the questions that they asked, we were able to prep the other clients and the other, I guess, non-clients that we've even been working with. We were able to help them prep so that there were less questions so they could get through the process faster. So yeah, I just feel like
can you take us
our
through
responsibility.
the couple
Yeah.
loan programs that exist? And correct me if I'm wrong, you are just helping anybody who comes. So even big companies are coming to you and you're doing this for them.
Yeah. There's a chain of restaurants that we work with here in Washington State. I'm not going to name them, but they're a burger chain. They've got probably about a dozen locations, and we help them. They've got 300 employees, so we've helped them work through the applications, and they actually have different entities for each of their locations. So we help them. So we'll help big companies, and I help them because I like their burgers. So that was kind of one of the first like non-clients that we work with, and the process is not, if you've done it 100 times before, it's not super hard, but the process is so helpful for those entrepreneurs that the payment for me is just helping these businesses stay afloat and giving everyone hope that the economy is going to come back and they're going to get this stopgap in between there. But the first place I think that businesses should look, and we've helped businesses from New Mexico to Austin, Texas, LA, Denver. We helped an optometry clinic in I think it was Jersey, New Jersey, which has been pretty heavily hit because from the fallout from New York. They might even be the second worst hit at this point. But we've been helping clients from across the country. And the first thing that we do, even before we set up the call, is we say, go to your local city's Chamber of Commerce website and see what your city's offering. So for example, here in Seattle, the local city of Seattle is offering a $10,000 grant it's targeted to restaurants, but essentially if you're a restaurant and you're operating in the city of Seattle and you've had to close, you can get $10,000 from the city of Seattle. And I think what you'll find is across the country, a lot of cities, especially the more wealthier cities, are offering programs like this. And then the next step would be to go to your state's website, your state Department of Commerce, and look for similar programs. There's also other private programs that you can find on those websites or the websites of small innovative banks. So for example, here in Seattle, Amazon has offered $5 million of grants to businesses around their campus in downtown Seattle that have been devastated by employees not going to work. So first off, there's a series of small programs that you can apply to that are at your local municipal and state level. And then the two programs that you've probably been hearing about nationally in all the news are the Payroll Protection Program, otherwise known as the PPP, and then the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, the EIDL
And
program.
will you take us through both of those programs?
Absolutely. I'll start with the EIDL because the EIDL actually launched 3 weeks before the PPP. And the EIDL was interesting because there was a disaster loan program established prior to the COVID disaster that allowed people in a disaster zone like Hurricane Katrina area to apply for these disaster loans. This loan is a 30-year loan at a 3.75% interest rate. So say, for example, you qualify for a $100,000 loan, you're only going to pay $400 a month. And you can pay it off at any time you want. You can pay it off early if the business comes back. And there's also no payments during the time of the crisis, which they're considering being 12 months. So once you get the loan, you don't have to make a single payment for 12 months. And then at the end of 12 months, your payment term is over 30 years, which the 30-year loan is kind of the magical thing because the loan payments are so small. So this loan became the COVID-19 relief loan. And so it's the same economic injury disaster loan, but COVID-19 created a new website. With this loan, through the CARES Act, they passed a forgivable part of this loan. So the first $10,000, which they've essentially prescribed is going to be in an advance, although none of these advances have been funded yet. But the first $10,000 of this loan is forgiven automatically, and then you have to pay back the rest of the loan. And so the process for that loan, and this is probably the bulk of the loans that we've done, because a lot of small business owners don't pay themselves a traditional salary because their business is a LLC, or in some cases, we've done a lot for sole proprietors. But this loan allows you to apply for a grant of $10,000. And by doing that grant of $10,000, providing your routing and account information, you're also entered in with the SBA for a direct SBA loan of what we're seeing is about half of your annual sales from the year before. And that's spread over 30 years at 3.75% interest. The interesting thing is with our clients that have gotten to the approval stage, there have been 5 different people at the SBA that have touched their file. And so when you're thinking that there's been, a couple weeks ago, they had a stat that there was 14,000 applications within the first week, and the SBA had only opened 6,000 of those 14,000 a week or two into it. So now I'm guessing there's probably 30,000 applications, maybe half of them have been started at the SBA. But there's a person who intakes the forms. There's a person who follows up with the applicant to get additional information. There's someone that reviews and prepares documents. There's a legal review. And then ultimately there's the people that distribute the funds. So that loan is really easy to apply for. The initial disaster loan, when we first started making applications 3 weeks ago, was a little bit more onerous, but now it's totally streamlined. You essentially tell the SBA what type of business you are. You give them information about the business. You give them information about the individual, a little bit of information about your previous revenue, and then your routing and account information for the deposit. So that application is actually really easy. There's some of the questions that are a little bit tricky, which is the major value that we've been providing for the people that we've been helping them fill that out. But that's the EIDL loan. So that's able to be used for anything that helps keep the business afloat because it's a working capital loan. You do have to track where you spent the money, even if you're a sole proprietor. And so we're working with a lot of people to set up programs for their accounting and their bookkeeping afterwards so that we can help them sort of auto comply and keep their books in order so that as those funds come in, they're well accounted for. The second program, the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, is a program that's based off of a period of your wages you paid to your employees. And then you take your average over that period, multiply it by 2.5, and then that's a loan that's given to you from your bank or an SBA lender. And then if you use that loan on paying payroll, rent, utilities, or interest, for the business, you'll be able to apply to get that loan forgiven again through your bank. And so that program, we've heard that the first applications are starting to get disbursements of their funds now. The hard thing is if you're a small business, your payroll isn't as consistent as a large company would be. And so pulling the W-2 forms for the year or your 940 tax reporting form isn't totally representative of what your average payroll is. And so we've been working with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners to figure out what is your accurate payroll reporting period. And so the law allows you to take a seasonally adjusted payroll period. So if you do all your business, during the summer, you can base the loan off of that time of the year for payroll. Or if you started your business and you've been growing over time, you can take a rolling 12 months opposed to the 2019 time, or even a shorter period. And so we've been working with our clients, and then also anyone else really that reaches out, to help them identify what's the most optimized, best representation of our average monthly payroll. And then what are we going to be able to spend this money on for it to be forgiven? So that loan is done through your bank. And there's been some challenges. Bank of America was the first bank to allow those applications. However, they only allow those applications from their customers who already had an existing lending relationship with Bank of America. Chase Bank, when Bank of America launched, they were the first ones to launch on Friday. And then Chase Bank was supposed to launch the following Monday. But a lot of our clients couldn't even get into their portal until midday or later on Tuesday. Their application was a lot more thorough. But again, they only started processing the applications probably Wednesday and Thursday of last week. So not that we know of have any of those loans actually been dispersed. My best suggestion if you're trying to get the PPP loan would be to find a local bank that you have some relationship with. So if you've got a small local bank, I think it's First Tech in California has been doing a great job for some of their clients. Also, actually, First Republic, it is in California. First Republic Bank in California has been doing a great job for their clients because they've got a real great hand touch to their customers that they work with. And they've been able to process those applications pretty seamlessly and without a whole bunch of back and forth. So,
anything else we should know, Andrew, about how to get a hold of you or anything else?
Yeah, so our website is zcounting.com. So it's just like accounting, but with a Z instead of an A. So zccounting.com. I'm also pretty active on Instagram, and recently I've started to become active on TikTok. Just giving, just giving information.
Just in case it matters.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I have a client who's the probably the largest TikTok agency today. You have marketing agencies that focus on social and stuff. So these guys focus strictly on TikTok, and they're probably the largest TikTok agency today. And their CEO is actually just mentioned in Bloomberg on an article on how to advertise on TikTok. But their average age of their employees is probably 20 years old. And so when I've gone down to visit them in Los Angeles, one of their employees encouraged me to create a TikTok because TikTok today is prioritizing educational content. And then another thing that I realized.
Oh, I only thought about TikTok for dance videos. Look, shows how much
it's funny. Yeah. So most of TikTok is dance videos, and I always feel weird talking about tax and accounting, and in the case of last week, all these disaster recovery loans without doing dance moves. But there's a lot of young people on TikTok, and I think that just being able to give back to young people and helping them understand sort of the basics about employment about accounting and personal finance, I think has been fun. So look for me, Z Counting across the board, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and again, I've got open arms to any entrepreneur, founder, small business that's struggling through these loan applications. We're helping everyone sort of at no cost.
All right.
Because I just want to help, and hopefully when they get back on their feet and they need another accountant, hopefully they'll think of us.
So in the show notes, we'll also add an email address or maybe even your Calendly link if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks for joining us today. And if you need any help with applying for any of these loans, please don't hesitate to call Andrew. We've had a couple of folks that we know over at Zoic Capital have interest, and it's been really quick, and I've gotten great feedback. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks so much, Neal.
The big time stuff that I wish I had. The big time stuff that'll make you mad. The big time stuff. I like the big time stuff. I like the big time stuff that I never had.